Hi guys, for the district profile, I will be talking about Glendora Unified School District. So, a little bit about GUSD. The location is obviously in Glendora, California. You can look at the picture on the left-hand side and you can see that everyone who lives inside of those purple lines are in the Glendora Unified School District. So, a majority of it, or about half, includes the mountains, so there's not that many people down in that gray area that are sanctioned for this district. So there's not that many schools. There are only 5 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school. There's also a 1 continuation high school and 1 adult school. The district office is at Sellers Elementary School. So overall, typically when people think of Glendora Unified School District, these are the types of things that they think of. They're known for high quality teachers, high parent involvement, and they definitely push A through G requirements for four-year universities, even as low as 5th grade. They're starting to prepare students for college, with electives such as AVID, Cornell Notes, time management, just getting them used to the types of things that you need to be successful in order to get into college. And it's definitely apparent in high school when they're trying to push you on the A through G track so you can go to a four-year university straight from high school rather than a community college, just because this whole community, it's a college-centered community. They're very, college-based, trying to push for that, and it's very apparent in the school district as well. And lastly, they encourage their students to be productive members of society. So they really like well-rounded individuals. So they encourage students to participate in lots of other different things, not just academics. So athletics, ASB, band, pageantry, leadership, different things. So it just creates a well-rounded individual that will make a difference in society. So going on to the belief statements for the district, their number one is that students are the greatest priority, which I think is really important because sometimes, that can get lost in a lot of different things, test scores and, just the political aspects of school districts, but definitely making students their greatest priority is number one. Knowing that all students have the right to a safe, nurturing, and secure environment and that they all deserve a quality education, I think that's super important. And the most important thing to making it a quality education is making sure that the parents, students, educators, and community all come together. A successful education is going to come through the help of everyone. It can't just be the teachers in the classroom. The parents have to help out. The students have to buy in. The community has to have that kind of culture where this community really does. Like I said, it's just a college-centered culture where pushing students to do their absolute best so they can get into a really good college. Challenging students both in and outside the classroom. We have to, make sure that our students can have those successful experiences and build feelings of confidence and self-worth. And then just realizing that education is the foundation for individual freedom, responsibility, and it really empowers students to meet the challenges of our world. When you have that education and you feel empowered, those are the types of people who are going to change the world one day. And that's really part of their belief as a school district, which I think is really important. Now moving on to the demographic composition of the school district. Glendora Unified as a whole, just based off me, I grew up and I went to Glendora schools my entire life. And just talking to other individuals, the stereotype that Glendora has demographic-wise is that it's quote-unquote the white school district, or the white area, which has been true my entire life that I've grown up there. I definitely have seen that. But as you can see in the charts before you, that is steadily changing. The white population has always been the dominant population, but ever since 2012, it's been pretty even with the Hispanic community. And even now, up to 2016, 2017, the Hispanic community, for the first time ever, is the dominant race that goes on ethnicity at Glendora. So that's definitely a major change that has just been within the past couple of years that I've noticed from when I've been in school to now doing my student teaching in the district. It's definitely a major change. Looking at the foster youth count in Glendora, starting in 2013, 2014, the number was very low. It was only about 13 students, and then the very next year it jumps up, and it looks like it's completely drastic, but It's really only about 26 or 27 students, which is a lot knowing that it was originally 13, so it pretty much doubled. But when you look at the entire school district as a whole, you can tell that really 26 or 27 students in the entire district isn't that many. But starting in 2016, 2017, it is steadily declining. So that is a positive, and it's a trend that we hope continues. For English learners, it's pretty stagnant. Just from 2012 to about now, it's between 400 and 500 English learners. So that hasn't changed too much over the years. The languages of those ELs, though, if you're going to look at the demographics, you would assume, obviously, Spanish would be the #1 language for ELs, which is definitely correct. And then there also is a large amount, which has grown since 2012, of Arabic speakers. There is also a large amount of different Asian speakers, whether it's Cantonese, Filipino, Japanese, Mandarin, Vietnamese. So there's a lot of different ones, all compiled down into one, and you can see it broken down by color. Mandarin is definitely number 3. So those are the 3 largest ones: Spanish, Arabic, and then Mandarin. And then the average class size. Comparing our district to the state and the county, the class size is a little bit higher, but not too much. On average in the state and the county, it's about 25, 26 students per class. But in the district, it averages out to be about 27, maybe 28. However, what I will say is that the classes are very, just based on my experience in student teaching, I have one class that has 36 students in it, and then the very next period I have 24 students. So I think it's very, up and down. There isn't really like an average size. I would say like the very large classes, you can definitely tell like this is a very large class, and then going down all the way down to 24 students, it seems very small compared to that. So it definitely varies per period, but overall it does have a higher average class size compared to state and county. So the expenditures in the 2016-2017 school year totaled to $54,324,153. And basically how that was spent, obviously a majority of that is spent on salaries. So the average salary in the Glendora Unified School District is $88,970, which is pretty high compared to California average, which is $74,476. So it's about $14,000 more than the average in California. And then also we have the amount of dollars spent per student, and it's a little bit lower compared to California average. It's $7,167 compared to $8,674. So it's about $1,500 less per student actually spent. And then looking at the actual expenditures per activity, so you can see, obviously, like I said before, the majority of the money is being spent on instruction, so that's 67%. So instruction would classify as, certificated and classified salaries, employee benefits, supplies, things like that. The next would be plant services and instructional related services. So, plant services are obviously pretty self-explanatory. Instructional related services would be, instructional supervision like aides and media, technology, library, administration, stuff like that. Next up, we have a tie for pupil services, general admission, and other. So for pupil services, that would be guidance counselors, psychologists, health, testing, food services, general administration. We have board, superintendent, data processing. And then for other, we have, debt service, transfers between agencies, and stuff like that. So here's pretty much the overall breakdown of that $54 million that was spent. The majority of it is spent on our certificated and classified salaries. So next up we have the LCAP priorities. So LCAP stands for Local Control and Accountability Plan. The priorities we have here are 4 overreaching goals. So they state that their goal is that they're going to continue to add reading specialists, which will really help the SES, EL, and foster youth students. They also want to make sure that EL parents are, able to participate with their program that they have. It's an 8-week program where the primary language is given to both the parent and the student to help them, feel involved, feel supported. And then at the high school level, they want to offer off-site counseling for families, just to make sure, again, that they feel supported. They feel like they're a part of that community. And for the upper elementary and secondary students, they will continue to implement systems based on reading intervention. So that's a huge thing for them, is making sure reading intervention is taken care of. They have programs for all students, even ELs, in their own languages to help reach and identify that achievement gap in the area of ELA, because as we all know, that is steadily declining over the years. So they really want to try to make a difference in all their students. So for 2016-2017, on the left-hand side, there are a list of bullet points of everything that they pretty much accomplished. Is more of like an overview of like, hey, this is what we did. And then based on those things, they created these goals for 2018. So I pretty much summed it up because obviously there are a lot of different goals. But overall for student achievement, they want to increase ELA and math SBAC scores by 5%, increase EL reclassification rate by 2.7%, and increase A through G requirement completion by 5%. So again, they are pushing those A through G requirements. They really want students to go to a four-year university. They want those ELs to feel like there's a community. They want to reclassify them, push them to be their best. And that in turn will, try to increase ELA and math scores for state testing. For parent engagement, they want to have, more district-wide and school-wide, parent education nights. They will have it in primary languages, which would be Spanish, Mandarin, and Arabic, since those are the three main EL languages in the district. And then they also want to increase number of parent participants in board groups to 40. So again, they really want that parent engagement. They want to have that sense of community and have the teachers, parent, community, educators, students, everyone on the same page. And with that comes, making the parents feel like they're at home. Conditions of learning, they want to basically just maintain what they're already doing. So they have 9 out of 9 good schools in repair. They have a 0% rate of teacher misassignment, and they have a 100% rate for student access to standard aligned materials. So they just want to maintain those things. And lastly, student engagement and school climate. They want to maintain the dropout rate and maintain high school graduation rates, since they have, a really low dropout rate of less than 1% and a really high graduation rate of 98%. And they also want to increase district-wide attendance to 97%. So recent changes that have happened in the district, obviously there are a lot of things that are constantly changing in education, but specifically these three have made a big difference, I think. First of all, at the school, I'm at Goddard Middle School right now for my student teaching. Jennifer Prince is the new principal there. She got there 2 years ago. She has made a tremendous difference. She is super progressive. She lets the teachers completely have the freedom to be creative. She supports them no matter what. But at the same time, she's also all about the students. So she always wants to make sure that she makes decisions based on, what's best for these students. Like a perfect example of this was, the teachers were trying to push for state testing to be the week right after we come back from spring break. And the reason for doing that is because they didn't want to plan, 1 week of instruction and start testing the next week when, it's kind of an awkward amount of days, just 5 days to have instruction to go into testing. You don't really want to start something new. Plus you're coming back from spring break, so you don't really want to plan something. But, coming back from spring break and starting testing right on that Monday is not the most beneficial thing for students. They're not going to perform at their best. So she tried to, make a compromise and have Monday and Tuesday be practice testing. So again, teachers still didn't have to plan anything. And then on the Wednesday, they started the actual SBAC testing. So I think she's a great principal. I think she's a great addition to Goddard, and she really listens to the teachers and the students. Also, new ELA textbooks for the district The entire district went through a textbook adoption process last year. They got to try out a couple, and this year was the first year that they, introduced these textbooks. They haven't had new English textbooks since 2002, so that is a very long time. So it was definitely a recent change, and it made a big impact on, how they've been teaching. They've been using the same textbook for so long now. But I think it's a really good change because it has really good material in there, things that are more relevant, staying up with the times, and I think that's really important for the kids to see in their textbooks. And lastly, they have a new position created at the district office. It's called the Director of Educational Technology. And actually, the former principal of Goddard Middle School, the person who Jennifer Prince replaced, got this position. He was basically, just very pro technology and always trying to implement it at Goddard. And the district recognized how, knowledgeable he was about technology, apps, websites, different things that teachers can use in their classroom. So they decided to create this position and they offered it to him right away. And he comes to our schools. He gives us, the last one we had a Brain Pop tutorial. So he's teaching us how to use Brain Pop, for all the different content areas. And I think this is something that's super important for staff development because a lot of teachers, it's not that they don't want to use technology, maybe some don't, but it's just that they don't know how, or they don't know how to apply it to their content area. So I think that it's such a cool position, and I think it's really progressive of this district to, make sure that they're trying to implement educational technology wherever they can. So some strengths for Glendora, they have high graduation rates, they have high salaries compared to California as a whole, and they have high SBAC scores. They also have high revenue and high parent involvement. And some other strengths, they have low dropout rates, low expulsion rates, and low suspension rates. So you can see overall, the amount of students who are graduating is a lot higher than, dropout, expulsion, and suspension. So it means that overall they're not dealing with too much of behavioral problems. They are having high SBAC scores. They have students who are achieving really well. And that's some key strengths, and that's why a lot of people, really try to get their kids into the Glendora district because they have that reputation of having really, good students, high graduation rates, good test scores, stuff like that, where you're surrounding yourself with positive environment. So someone that I interviewed in the district quoted, "I really lucked out getting this job at Goddard. I didn't think I would because Glendora Unified is so popular, but the work environment and parent support is awesome." So this particular teacher, he is a elementary school teacher. He didn't have his credential at the time. It was about 7-8 years ago, and he was just subbing. And then they told him that he's going to be a long-term sub while they, find a teacher to take over the classroom. And then they couldn't find anyone, so they just offered him and said, "Hey, if you go back to school and, get your intern credential, the job is yours. You can keep your classroom that you already had for a couple months now." So he kind of wasn't really intending to be a teacher. He was just subbing for the meantime. But it really worked out for him. So he said that he didn't even know what he was getting into, and the fact that this could be such a positive environment and actually end up being what he truly loves and is passionate about is super awesome. And to do that at Glendora is really lucky because, nowadays it's really, really difficult to get an intern credential, especially in Glendora. They haven't hired an intern credential probably since he was hired, because I asked before we did student teaching and they said that they don't do that anymore. But there are some challenges definitely for GUSD. There aren't many, but the ones that I could come up with, they have low student diversity. So again, that is changing based on the demographic presentation I gave a little bit earlier, but it is still predominantly, white and Hispanic, so not too much diversity. And then, yes, I did mention in the strengths that the salaries were greater compared to California as a whole, but the salaries are actually a lot lower compared to nearby districts. So, when you're looking at California as a whole, you're looking at, all those farm communities, Northern California. We're not just looking at, LA or the Inland Empire or stuff like that. So when you compare it to, a district like Rancho, who starting off pays about $10,000 more, and then steadily increases from there, you can tell that might be a challenge. Like if you're going to be working in this area, you might as well be going to a district that's going to pay you a little bit more. And then also, some might not see this as a challenge, but there is a high population of older citizens. So the example I have for why this is a challenge was the older citizens, they don't have children in the school system. So in the beginning of this year, there was a bond vote. Basically, if this bond vote would have passed, all the teachers would have been making more money. It would have came out of, the residents in Glendora to pay a little bit more in their taxes, of course, but it would be going directly to the teachers. Like they did this bill specifically so the teachers could make more money, so it could be more competitive compared to nearby districts. But obviously the majority of citizens in Glendora, they're older, they don't have students in the school system, so they don't support that. So they don't want to be paying more money for something that they're not going to benefit from. So they ended up not passing the bond vote. So I think that's kind of a challenge I do think that there is a high level of parent involvement, but because there's a high population of older citizens too, it kind of balances each other out when it comes to things like, these bond votes or taxes increasing or stuff like that. So that can be a challenge, definitely. Another quote that I have, this one is from my master teacher at Goddard Middle School. He said, "They definitely don't pay as well as nearby similar districts, but we don't have to deal with a lot of behavioral problems, so pros and cons." So again, this kind of touches on both strengths and the challenges because, yes, they're not making as much money, and he knows that he probably could make more money elsewhere, but then elsewhere you're going to be dealing with a lot more behavioral problems, a lot less parent involvement. So it kind of just depends on what's more important to you. So, for example, his wife worked in Azusa School District, which is right next door, 5 minutes down the road, predominantly Hispanic community, no parent involvement whatsoever. She said a lot of behavioral problems. She made a little bit more money than he did, but she said the amount of stress and extra work that she had to do was definitely not worth it. So she's currently trying to find a job in Glendora, even though she knows it pays a little bit less. So I guess it definitely is pros and cons based on your personal preference and what you think is most important. So recommendations. How can GUSD, maintain their strengths? They can continue to provide academic support to maintain graduation rates, continue to hire well-qualified teachers and maintain SBAC scores, and continue to provide parent information nights. I think this is something that's really important. Even if there's not that high of a level of EL students, just, again, they're trying to reinforce that community aspect. So making sure that parents are informed, making sure that parents feel like they can have someone who speaks their language, literally speaks their language, and feel like they're part of a community. I think that really helps them buy in and makes everyone in Glendora, jump on board with their goals as a district. They can also continue to provide emotional and social support to maintain dropout rates and continue to implement disciplinary systems. So obviously, they might not have as big of behavioral problems as other districts, but maybe that could be due to their disciplinary system, and it's a really good disciplinary system. So just to continue on with that, making sure that they, have those Saturday schools, the referrals, stuff like that, making sure that, students have to maintain a high GPA to participate in extra school and extracurricular activities. To improve their challenges, they would need to provide comparable salaries to nearby districts. I think that's probably the biggest challenge to this school district, because if you're an outsider looking in, you think wow, this is just a great school district to work in. So you don't want those great teachers to go elsewhere just simply because they need more money. And then also try to figure out a way to provide support to the older community in order for them to support the school district in return. So again, I'm not sure how you could do that. Maybe you can have, senior citizen involvement night. You can have like a game night. You can do something where you just are trying to include them into the community and make them feel like, hey, you're giving back. Maybe you didn't go to the Glendora School District. Maybe you did, but, this is the community you live in now, so let's try to make it better. So overall, that is Glendora Unified School District in a nutshell. here are my references from, Ed Data, getting my charts and graphs, and then also from the Glendora Unified School District. I also interviewed, like I said, Jacob Crook, who is my master teacher, Rebecca Rodriguez, and Rod Tilton. So I got a lot of my information, based on searching through the web, having these interviews, and just my own personal experience, both going through the Glendora School District and, now student teaching in it as well. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope you learned a little something about Glendora Unified School District that you didn't know before. And I look forward to looking at the rest of your guys' district profiles. Thank you.